And he starts yelling at us, "You called me Ketchup, and I'm not Ketchup," and da 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 da. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So we're gonna continue the little misadventures that was my trip to Europe back in April 2012. If you remember in the last episode, I was talking about London to Dover, and I got robbed at Canterbury Cathedral and fell on the train and face planted in London, and just had an all around great time. Yeah, so when we got to, we ended up going to Dover from Canterbury because we were going to take the ferry from Dover to Calais. And when we were in Dover, we stayed at this like little shitty hotel. This was like a little family-run hotel that wasn't very well maintained. At least the room that I was in wasn't. So we got in and we like relaxed, and my like roommates for the trip and I just kind of like hung out and played some poker and some Uno and whatnot. And we went to like the convenience store and picked up some Iron Brew and some chips, and just hung out for the night. In the morning, my buddy got up to go have a shower, and he let out this like little yelp. It was like, ah, what the hell? And so I thought he like hurt himself or something, so I went into the bathroom to go and kind of see how he was doing. And the whole shower was red. Like the wall had splatters of red all over it. The tub was stained red. The shower curtain had red on it. It looked like somebody had been hacked to death with a fucking machete. And so we were just like, okay, that's disgusting. And there's like red dripping out of the tap. So like, yeah, we're not gonna have a shower today. We're just gonna leave that. We're not even gonna touch the bathroom. I don't know how we didn't notice it when we first got in to the hotel, but we didn't. So yeah, we just kind of like hung out, wandered around Dover for a bit, went and looked at the cliffs and stuff, and then off we went to the bus to go over to Calais. But we had to go back to the hotel and get all of our bags and stuff. So we decided to, because we're like 16-year-old boys, what 16-year-old boy doesn't love to do a little prank? So we turned the shower on and got the room all steamy, and we wrote, "Help me," on the mirror, because, you know, everything was stained red and it looked like blood was all over the place. And then we left. We thought it was funny at the time. It still puts a smile on my face. It's a funny memory, I guess. We drove from Dover to the ferry. We were on the ferry just kind of hanging out, doing whatever. Not really doing much. Again, just playing poker and whatnot. When we got to Paris, we kind of just like drove around, did a little like tour, and then the next day we went to go like visit the Eiffel Tower and stuff. And like we were promised like 3 days in Paris. We ended up only staying for like 2 nights. So yeah, we wandered around Paris for a bit. We were supposed to go like right up to the Eiffel Tower, but the line was like a few miles long. Like, I'm not even joking. It was like a few miles long. And we were all supposed to go to the Louvre, but we never ended up doing that. And we went out for this weird meal. The food on the trip was a massive disappointment. Like, when we were in England, or London specifically, they promised us that we were going to eat like real British food, and I was like, okay, so it's just going to be food, because like my mom's from Scotland. And by the way, I didn't paint that. We moved in here, and that thing was on the wall, and I just felt like it was a fitting background, because instead of like a plain brown wall or a plain white wall, it just kind of fit the mood. But yeah, so when we were in London, we had hummus, because that's very British, you know, a nice meal of hummus. And then we went to this like shitty little restaurant. I had like bangers and mash and stuff, but they didn't know what was in their gravy and stuff, so people couldn't eat it because there was like people with like nut allergies and gluten allergies and stuff, and this restaurant had no clue what was in their food, so we couldn't eat there. Um, like we stayed, but there was people that like just kind of had water and then bought like McDonald's and stuff afterwards. Back to France. When we were in France, we they took us out. I think it was flan. It was like a weird like little pizza thing. I don't know what it. I can't remember what it was called. But it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. It was soggy and floppy and had no flavor and yeah. And like to get to the restaurant, we had to like walk through these sketchy ass like back alleys, and then they like the restaurant was in like a basement, and there was like no lighting. It was like really dark, and it was just it was not a fun time. Um, but after that, we got to wander around, and so we my little group of friends and I wandered around, and like you know, in the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the like cartoon that Disney made, there's the guy on the bridge, and he's like a homeless guy, and he's got like he's a big fat guy. He's got like a green coat, and he's got the two dogs. Well, we were walking, and I turned around, and I swear it looked like somebody had put their hand into the cartoon and pulled this guy out and just plopped him onto the streets of Paris. He had the exact same dogs, the exact same coat, the exact same hat. It looked the exact same. It was crazy. It was like I was in fucking Disneyland. But yeah, we're walking around, and my buddy had this weird habit of just poofing. Like, you'd turn around and he was just gone. It was poof, gone. And so like I was talking to him, you know, talking to how is the trip going, yada yada. And then I turned around and he was just gone. And it was like almost time for us to go back to the bus. So like me and my few other buddies were like, what the hell? Where did he go? Like, what are we gonna do? We need to find him. And so we were like wandered around for like an hour looking for this guy. And then we like popped around a corner, turned around, and boom, there he was behind the back of the group again. We're like, no clue that we'd been looking everywhere for him. And so we then realized that we're lost. And we're in a foreign country in one of the biggest cities in the world, and we're lost. And we don't speak the language for the most part, because, I mean, we are Canadian, so we have like a basic grasp of French. But yeah, we got lost. So we had to wander around again, trying to backtrack where we came from. And then I saw the guy with the dogs again. I was like, haha, I know where we are. And so then we ended up making it to the bus, and the teachers were all pissy with us because we were late. And then we went back to the hotel. I think that was the end of our stay in Paris. I think early the next morning we started driving to Lille, or like mid-afternoon we started driving to Lille. I can't remember. Again, this was like 7-8 years ago. And then when we got to Lille, they again gave us some time to like hang out, wander around. And remember, this is a school trip, so we're of age to drink in France. But because we're on a school trip, Canadian rules still apply to us. So if we got caught drinking, we would be suspended or expelled from school. And so it's like the middle of the night. It's like time to get back in because, you know, we're on a school trip, so we have bed check and everything. And we get back, and I notice this guy just, from our trip, just stumbling around in the parking lot. And so I'm like, okay, let's go, buddy. And I kind of like helped him, got him up, kind of like put my arm around him and hopped him back to his room. And he was like fumbling, trying to get the door open, and Idiot Box didn't tell me that he was in the room right beside the teachers until the last minute. So he was like trying to get the key and everything to work, and I hear like, what's going on out there? And it was one of the teachers, like, oh shit. So I like grabbed his key and I just shoved it into the, like, it was one of those electric ones that you just like ding, and I like shoved it into the door, and I like opened it, and I threw him into the room and threw him on the bed. And the teacher opened the door, and I was like, oh, sorry, I was just looking for so-and-so. I just had the wrong room, but he's in there. I'm just heading off to my room. The teacher was like, yeah, you better hurry up, because like it's bed check times, and you don't want to be late. And I was like, thanks. And I just ran off. So yeah, dude was drunk on a high school trip because he was telling me the next day. We remember how I was saying earlier, we had the big bright red jackets that said Canada on the back. We're now like in the area that Canada liberated during the Second World War, and so we're like really high regard up there. And we're like walking, and apparently he was walking along, and two guys saw the back of his coat, hopped out of the bar, grabbed him, pulled him in, and just started like handing him alcohol. And I mean, what 17-year-old kid is gonna turn down free alcohol? So yeah, and that's how he ended up being super, super drunk on a school trip in a foreign country. I'm surprised he managed to make it back to the hotel, to be honest. And so, like, yeah, the next day we got on the bus and we headed towards Bruges. And when we were in Bruges, we just kind of like, again, just wandering around. We stopped for chocolate, and because you know you're in Belgium, you gotta get chocolate. Got fudge and chocolate and brownies, and you know, just buying a bunch of shit. And they were like filming a movie while we were there, and it was like set in like the 1800s. So it was like they're driving around in like a horse and buggy with like a giant ass camera on the back, and like he came around the corner and they'd have to like stop and start over because there'd just be people walking around in like normal clothes, and they didn't block off any of the streets or anything. We got on the bus, and instead of like leaving, we sat there, and one of the teachers had put In Bruges on, so we watched the movie In Bruges while we were in Bruges. It was a little joke that he was kind of doing. And from there we went. Oh no, we went to Vimy. That's right. We went to Vimy before we went to Bruges. And when we were at Vimy, we were kind of like wandering around in the trenches and stuff. And I like found a boot. And we were just kind of, it was like raining, and then the queen ended up not coming because it was the French elections, and she didn't want to get asked like, oh, who are you voting for the elections, and da 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 da. So the queen wasn't there. I think it was Prince Charles was there. I think it was Prince Charles that was there. We just kind of got to hang out. Apparently some guys that I met when I moved to Ottawa were actually there with their cadet corps, which was pretty cool. I got lost when we were walking around, and I couldn't find the bathroom. I saw this gendarme officer, which is like the French National Police, and I had like a Fringlish conversation with him, trying to find out where the toilet is. And like, for those who don't know, Fringlish is like where you switch between English and French and English, and da 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 da. You just kind of do it back and forth. So I was like, I said like, hey, how are you today, officer? And then he said, oh, I'm good. And then I was like, so could you tell me where the toilets are? And he's like, oh yeah, they're over there. I was like, thanks very much, have a good day. And we kept switching back and forth between French and English. It was a little funny to me, because I'd never had a situation like that before, where I was like switching back and forth between the two languages. It was an interesting experience. It was a weird exchange. Yeah, and then we went to Bruges and whatnot. And then from Bruges, we went to Amsterdam. Now, Amsterdam's where this whole trip just went tits up. We weren't staying in Amsterdam. We were staying in like a little town just outside of Amsterdam, where it was only like a 20-minute drive from Amsterdam, from the hostel. It was a hostel. Where it was only like a 20-minute drive from like the hostel to Amsterdam. And so we get in, and because we had the tour bus, we wouldn't leave our stuff there. We kind of like just left it on the bus. So we went from the hostel to downtown Amsterdam to just kind of like have a little tour. We were like walking around, and at this point, I think when we were in Lille, somebody had gone into the hotel room and taken all the gifts I bought, and they stole. My mom had like this little It's like a little charging box. It was like the same size as this, right? It was like, this is my guitar pedal, but yeah, it was like the same size as this, and you like opened it up, and it had like a whole bunch of different charging converters in it. Because when you're in Europe, every country has a different output level. So like here in Canada, we have the like 3-prong 120 volt outlets, and then in England they're like round, and then in France they're a different shape, and you gotta have like converters depending where you are. And so my mom had had this thing for 30 years, and some asshole stole it out of my hotel room in Lille. So I lost in England. I lost my wallet and face planted, and then in Lille, somebody stole all the gifts I bought and stole my mom's 30-year-old converter set. So that was fun. So I couldn't charge my phone, or not my phone, my DS, which I had brought with me. Oh, they also stole my little shitty camera that I had. So yeah, I couldn't charge my DS, which was all I had to take pictures with. And I couldn't charge some other stuff, and I was like, great. I got nothing to entertain myself with. I got no way of taking pictures. I have to rely on everybody else. I haven't been able to take any pictures since London, I think it was, because I couldn't find the charger to plug into the converter for my DS. So yeah, it was a big shit show. But when we got to Amsterdam, the whole thing just went tits up. We're walking around, and like, again, we're on a school trip, so we're not allowed to partake in the local industry, if you know what I mean. No baked goods. It was like a running joke between me and my dad that I went to Amsterdam and I had baked goods, but I didn't get baked. And so yeah, they took us on this little walking tour through like the red light district and everything, which, fun fact, they're considering banning. I saw a New York Times article about that yesterday, I think it was. They're considering banning tours through the red light district. Yeah, they're like, oh, we're going to take you through the red light district just so you can say you've been to the red light district, which was fine, whatever. But we weren't really allowed to go back into the red light district because school rules or some stupid thing like that. But my friends and I were wandering around afterwards, and we're like, where the hell are we? And we're in front of this like cathedral. And I look down, and there's a giant brass boob coming out of the ground in the middle of the sidewalk with a hand grabbing it. And I was like, what the hell? I'm like, what the fuck is that? Why is that there? Turns out it was a marker to say, hey, you're in the red light district now. And we didn't know that. And then we went back to the hostel, and we were in Amsterdam for like 2 or 3 days. And so like we go back to the hostel for the first night. And there was like 5 of us in the room, and we were being quiet. Like, we weren't really that loud. We were just kind of like playing poker and just like giggling. Like we were like just like this, we weren't too loud. And some Swedish guy, in ass naked, just like ripped open our door and yelled at us to shut the fuck up, and then slammed our door and left. And we were just kind of like, what? And then like 20 minutes later he came in again in his underwear, and he's like, shut up, you're so loud. Bah. I'm like, okay sir, we're like on a school trip, we're not being that loud, like, can you just leave us alone? We're going to bed soon anyway, we have to be up early in the morning. He's like, I'm going to find your teachers. So then our teacher came in because the guy had complained at the front desk. He's like, you guys need to just like pack it up and go to bed. We're like, we weren't being that loud, but fine, whatever. The next day we went and we toured like the Anne Frank Museum. Yeah, that was an interesting experience. My friend from back home, his brother was on this trip, his older brother. Yeah, this guy's an asshole. That's putting it politely. This guy's an asshole. And he made some joke about like burning the Jews or gassing the Jews, and like made jokes about Anne Frank, and I was just like, dude, like, not cool, not right here, not like, we're immersed in the history, like Like, just keep your mouth shut. Shut the fuck up while we're here. And he kept making these, like, stupid jokes. And I was like, dude, you're an asshole. Shut up. You're not funny. And he picked me up by the shirt and threatened to throw me into the canal. We're inside the Anne Frank Museum, and he's, like, being really loud and obnoxious. And just, like, causing problems. And he's, like, in my group, so it's making me and my other friends look bad. And it wasn't pleasant. So then we went to the Vincent van Gogh Museum. We had to just like hop on a tram and hope we got off at the right place because we were running late. So like there was like students on different trams, and we're just kind of like hoping we're getting off at the right place. We get to the museum, we wander around, people getting lost, the typical school trip bullshit. And we go back to the hostel. Everything's fine, we're just wandering around the little town we're in. And some Dutch kids being Dutch kids, they're just like, oh wow, you're from Canada, like, oh, that's awesome. We decided, okay, yeah, it's time to go back to the hostel. And we get there, and like it was dinner time, so we were eating. And there's this German guy. Now, this is, if you read the title, this is where drugs, ketchup, and a German guy come into play. He said his name was Heinz to my buddy, and so my buddy was like, "Oh, like the ketchup," and he was like, "Yeah, like the ketchup, like Heinz ketchup, makes sense." And then the night goes on, and we're hanging out, and he's laughing and singing along with us, and he started drinking, and so it was time for us to go to bed, and he'd been drinking, and he started just like popping up in random places, and he got a little like with us out of nowhere. We went to bed, and again, like he was just like popping into random rooms and like yelling at people throughout the night, and we were like sleeping, and then we had to be up at like 4 a.m. to get ready to go on the plane, because we were trying to beat an Air Canada strike, so we had to fly Lufthansa from Amsterdam to Frankfurt, and then we had to take Air Canada from Frankfurt to Canada. And so we had to get up like really early. And while we're getting all of our stuff and finding out where we are, we're like whispering and we're talking like this. Heinz shows up. And he starts yelling at us, "You called me Ketchup, and I'm not Ketchup," and da-da-da-da. And I wish I was making this shit up. This dude was pissed off because my buddy said, "Oh, like the ketchup." And he started threatening us and getting violent with us. And so the hotel manager kind of just is like, "Okay, you guys go outside. I'm going to lock all the doors, and then I'm going to come stand outside with you." And we're like, "Okay." So he disappears, comes back, and he's wearing a hat. And he like pulls the hat right down over his face. And like German and Dutch, they're very similar languages. So you can kind of gather what the other person's saying. It would be like Italian and Spanish. There's a lot of crossover, so you can kind of figure out through cues. So the hotel manager goes in, and he tries to like talk to the guy. And the hotel manager is not a small dude. He's like built like the mountain from Game of Thrones. Like, he's a big fucking guy. And this guy's like getting violent and threatening him. And so the hostel manager comes back outside. He's like, I'm calling the police. And Heinz disappears again. And he comes back, and he's wearing a dress and a sun hat. And I seriously wish I was making this stuff up, but it's seared in my mind because of how just outrageous it was. And he's wearing a dress and a sun hat and big ass sunglasses, and he's like mooning us and dancing through the hallways like this and banging on the windows and like yelling, "I'm not Ketchup, I'm not Ketchup," at us. And 2 minutes after the hotel manager called the police, they were there. And it was incredibly fast. Like, all he said was like, "Yeah, I've got a group of Canadian tourists here, and they're being harassed by a German guy. The Netherlands was liberated by Canada from Germany during the Second World War. So there's a very special relationship between the Dutch and Canadians. Fucking police were there like that. And they were like, you guys can go, don't worry about it. We'll deal with the situation. You just get on the bus and head to your plane. We don't want you missing your plane. But then we got on the plane, and I had this asshole sitting next to me who had 3 different newspapers in the same language, or in the same newspaper in 3 different languages. It was all like the Wall Street business stuff, and he's got it like spread out like this, and he's like elbowing me, and like we got on the plane, and it's like a tiny like mini plane. It's not like a 737 Super 8. It's like you know when you see a private jet on TV, it was like that size, maybe a little bit bigger. Like it was only enough to hold like 150 people, 200 people. And so like I put my bag in, and this guy comes up and he bashes and bashes and bashes my bag. And then comes in, he's got the 3 fucking newspapers, and he's just being obnoxious. And he like elbowing me in the head, and then we get our food, and it's ice cold, and it was disgusting again. And then and then the plane's like going like that and like that because the pilot's retiring. We were his last flight ever, so he was doing like tricks and stuff with the plane. And then we like landed in Frankfurt, and they had water jets shooting over the plane as we were landing. And then we got on, we had like an hour layover in Frankfurt before we got on the plane to come back to Canada. So we were wandering around, and now in Canada, white chocolate Kit Kats and white chocolate Kit Kat Chunkies are like everywhere. But back in 2012, they were like only in Germany. So I saw one, and I was like, oh my god, I have to try this. Like white chocolate Kit Kat, I have to have it. Because Kit Kats are my favorite chocolate, and then white chocolate's just delicious. So I had to have one. And so I bought like 3 of them. It was like the last of my money for the trip. And it went to white chocolate Kit Kats. And then we get on the plane, and the highlight of my trip was we were on the plane, and I was sitting beside 2 Dutch guys. And I was like falling asleep on the plane, and they got up, and we all got like blankets, right? But they refused to accept no as an answer here, and they basically forced me to take their blankets and make myself like pillows with them, and they even folded them up all nice for me and everything. And that was the highlight of my 2 weeks in Europe, was the 2 guys I was sitting next to on the plane on the way back to Canada. And so like we had stopped at like this cheese farm. It was like a cheese and clog farm when we were in the Netherlands, and a bunch of people smuggled cheese back into Canada. And I ate a white chocolate Kit Kat on my flight home, and everybody was so excited when we landed because, you know, we're all high school Canadians, so what's the first thing we buy when we get back to Canada? Tim Hortons, obviously. So yeah, that was my trip to Europe.